So I've checked out a lot of retro gaming handhelds on this channel, and sometimes I kind of blend a bit together. So whenever something's a little bit different, I get interested in it because it stands out from the crowd. The Anbernic Arc D is something that definitely caught my eye when my buddies over at Keep Retro asked me if I wanted to check it out. I'll have a link to this device down in the description box down below, but look at this. It looks like a Japanese Sega Saturn controller with the screen built into it. This is right up RGT's alley. Coming in at an under $100 price point as well is very attractive. So I feel like fans of Sega Saturn in general will be definitely interested in this device. So they sent one over for me to check out. And I have to say, this was one of the most puzzling situations I've really ever had making a video. It went from I was so annoyed to so happy by the end of everything that, like, it's just an emotional roller coaster. This should be a holiday film filmed on the Hallmark Channel with how much turmoil and then joy comes from it. So what is this Anbernic Arc D all about, and should you be interested in it? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. So if this is your first time on the channel, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Without any further ado, let's check out this system and why I got frustrated and then why I was really happy. Alrighty, so here is our Anbernic RG Arc D sent over by my buddies over at Keep Retro. I'll have a link to it in the description box down below. And it looks like a Japanese Sega Saturn controller with a screen on it. I am very excited for this because I am a fan of the Sega Saturn. I actually kept one of my Sega Saturns when I sold most of my games, but I'm super looking forward to this, man. I think this looks really cool, and we are taking it out of its little packaging here. Look at this thing, man. This thing is great. 4x3-inch screen, because we're only playing Saturn stuff on this anyways. We have 2 slots down below for micro SD cards. We have our D-pad, which feels amazing. The buttons feel good. We're dualing up on the LNR triggers. We have an HDMI out. We have our DC in for charging the system, file transfer protocol as well. It's a good looking system, man. This is a very, very good looking system. I definitely enjoy the aesthetic of it. What else comes in the box with your system? Well, you get a little charging cable, of course, and then you get a screen protector, which I never really use screen protectors. We have an alcohol wipe so you can clean the screen, and we have some basic instructions with it, but I'm not really interested in all of that. I'm interested in playing this like a handheld Sega Saturn. I will say it's a little bit lighter than I thought it would be, but I mean, that's fine. I don't really care. Let's go ahead and hit the power button and turn this bad boy on. And would you look at what's about to pop up? It's an Anbernic style Sega, or a Sega style Anbernic logo. Definitely like that. Definitely appreciate that. And I think this is going to be really fun to check out. I'm really interested to see what's preloaded onto it, and I can't wait to play some Saturn stuff. So when you boot it up, you get into some different folders here. You have a ports folder, emulators, favorites, apps, and of course RetroArch. There's nothing really going on within the ports. The emulators, these are individual emulators that are loaded onto the thing already, so not indicative of all of the different systems that we have on here, just like individual emulators that are available on it. So now we'll check out the RetroArch section of it and scroll through the list of all of our games and all of our emulators, and there's so much stuff. And where the hell is Sega Saturn? Where in the name of God is Sega Saturn? You are telling me that there is no Sega Saturn built into this. There's no Sega Saturn ISOs on a system that looks like a Sega Saturn. That makes absolutely no sense to me. At this point, I'm like, is this a joke? Am I confused here? Am I missing something? And no, that's not the case. There's literally no Sega Saturn stuff built into this system. So now I'm thinking to myself, what is the point of this? Like, it's obviously designed for a certain style of game because it doesn't have an analog stick. It's a D-pad. And like, yeah, you could get away with some of that stuff with other systems. The ROM dumps itself seems okay, you know, your typical Master System stuff here, which, you know, it's always good to have. The Mega Drive stuff gets a little bit wonky because there's like weird stuff in here, which is one of the things we'll check out. But I'm so perplexed at this stage of the development or the product review that I don't know where to go with this, because I don't really want to play these other systems on this system. I want to specifically use it for Saturn stuff because that's the aesthetic of it. But since it is my job to look at these sort of things, we'll take a look at some of the games running on here just so I could get a feel for the controls, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into things. So here's some weird ROM hack, I guess. This was included in the Mega Drive portion for Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I don't know what this is, but I will say it plays pretty darn well. I'm liking the way that the screen looks. It's very crisp, very vibrant. Everything really pops off. That D-pad feels so good in my hands. Like, I absolutely love it. All of the buttons are very responsive. Of course, since we have a 6-button layout with this, you know, all of your punches are mapped to one button, all of your kicks are mapped to one button. So I'm definitely digging this. And now I'm kind of like in that stage where I'm like, well, maybe I need to accept this as just like a Sega machine, just kind of outside of the realm of Saturn stuff. So I'm enjoying this. You know, it's running well. It's looking good. The D-pad is feeling very nice, but I don't really want this just to play Genesis stuff. Like, obviously, I want to check out some other systems on here as well, which we will do in a second. But if for some reason you're curious about how Genesis runs, this is how it runs. So by proxy, NES, Master System, all that stuff will run great. What about youtube.com/Dreamcast guy? Let's check out some Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast here. And I'm honestly pleasantly surprised. There was some graphical glitches in the menu of the game, but as far as like the game running itself, it's running fine. I did check out Tekken 5 on the PSP. There was a little bit of jank with that, but I mean, I'm not really like playing PSP games with this device. Obviously, that's not what it's like designed for. This is designed for playing stuff like Sega Saturn. So now I'm kind of getting into my thinking, and I'm like, how can I make this run Saturn stuff? So at this point, I'm annoyed. I'm questioning why Ambernick did this to not have any Sega Saturn stuff on there. But I'm like, okay, there's probably a way to access the files within the memory card of the system and be able to add stuff to it. It is running RetroArch, so this shouldn't be a big deal. So basically, you take the memory card out of the system and then boot the system up, and the system will then launch into Android mode. You put the memory card back in, you plug it into your computer, and then bam, you have access to all of the files within the memory of this device and what's on here. So I'm looking through the file folders, and there's systems that are not represented on here, like PlayStation 2 and Sega Saturn. I go into the folder, there's no Sega Saturn games in there, clearly. Now, what's nice about it is I just simply downloaded some Sega Saturn ISOs from a website. Romancing of compact discs is a cool thing to do. If you know, you know. And basically, once I did this, I put them directly onto the memory card in the Saturn folder. Then I booted up the system to kind of see where I was at, see if I needed to add an emulator, and that's where things get very interesting. All right, so going into emulators now, Sega Saturn is already populated, and RetroArch has already downloaded an emulator for Sega Saturn. So now I'm thinking, okay, they didn't put Saturn stuff on here because it runs like crap, but it doesn't. I'm playing Nights into Dreams here, and it's running absolutely phenomenally. It's running exactly how I would imagine the game to be, and this is a game that I am extremely familiar with, so I feel like I would know if the game was running crappy or not. But it's not. It's running really well, better than it does on some other devices I have. What about Virtua Fighter 2? Oh, look, Virtua Fighter 2 running exactly how it should, looking really good, sounding really good, playing really good. So at this point, I'm just confused. I am just confused as to why, because the only thing that makes sense to me is Ambernick didn't want to put Saturn stuff on here because it didn't run well, and it wasn't like indicative of the capabilities of this device. But that's not the case at all, because Virtua Fighter 2 is a very tough to run game on the Sega Saturn. Speaking of sequels, what about Panzer Dragoon 2? Oh, look at this. This is running brilliantly. This thing is awesome. For Sega Saturn. It is designed for Sega Saturn. It is perfect for Sega Saturn, and it runs the games absolutely phenomenally. Phenomenally. So I'm very confused about this device. Like, I do like this device at the end of the day, because now I have it set up as a portable Sega Saturn. I'll just put whatever games I want to on here, and everything's fine and dandy. But the fact that I had to even do that is very puzzling to me. You know, you'll have to have a little bit of technical know-how in order to add the Saturn games to it. But if you add the Saturn games to it, it's well worth it, considering that this is under $100 and it's running Saturn stuff brilliantly and it feels great in your hand. So I got a link for it in the description box down below. Like I said, make sure you guys check it out. Give me your thoughts and feedback in the comments section down below. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.